Regardless, I will reshape this world as it was meant to be. I will crush any opposition. I will rule. That is what a king must do. Do not look away. You witness a king's revival. And the birth of his new world.
Ganondorf. Ganondorf is an incredibly powerful footsie fighter who excels at dealing huge amounts of damage and never giving his opponent a chance to breathe, as all of his attacks have the potential to spell his opponent's end. Thanks to this blend of long range and overwhelming strength, Ganondorf is a master of controlling the neutral and capitalizing on any mistakes made by his opponent. And since even his stray hits can prove dangerous, carelessly approaching Ganondorf without a plan is one of the worst things you could do in a one-on-one fight. But such strength always comes with a list of downsides to keep it in check. While incredibly strong when he has his opponent on the back foot, those that manage to either work past Ganondorf's defenses or catch him making mistakes will find a character who's a glutton for punishment. It's his large size and poor disadvantage state, making him a character who can potentially end up taking just as much damage as he can dish out. Thankfully, Ganondorf does have tools that allow him to force foes back into the neutral and recuperate from a beating, but even if that's the case, you're more than likely going to be playing at a percent deficit a majority of the time. But if you're a character as strong as Ganondorf, you might call that a fair fight. As a Ganondorf player, it's your job to use your incredible range and damage output to carefully control the flow of a fight, limiting your opponent's ability to approach while making them fear your buttons. As while Ganondorf's combo potential is fairly low, his ability to lock foes down and set up damage more than makes up for it. It's also important that you don't go all out on the offensive, as while your pressure can be scary, ignoring your defensive strengths can potentially result in whatever lead you have falling apart. Dominate the battlefield, force your opponent to play by your rules, then crush your opponent's will with a level of disrespect that only Ganondorf can achieve. Ganondorf stands as a very tall humanoid character, with his hulking frame standing proud as the tallest humanoid character in the game by a notable margin. A cruel and ruthless warlord hell-bent on conquering the land of Hyrule, Ganondorf is a villain who needs no introduction. As the main villain of the Legend of Zelda series, Ganondorf is a master of both magic and weapons-based combat, with the level of power in his possession being borderline godlike. It's so great, in fact, that the only thing that can potentially oppose it is the power of the Master Sword, which is how Link is even capable of defeating Ganondorf, let alone be able to match him in combat. It doesn't matter how much he might lose to the descendants of the hero, he'll always come back for another fight, for the curse of demise is unending, and so is the will of the King of Evil. Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom, however, is a fairly different beast when compared to his previous iterations. For starters, this version of Ganondorf is apparently not the same Ganondorf we've come to know over the course of the series, but instead a second reincarnation of Demise's curse with his own unique set of abilities. In fact, it's possible that this version of the King of Evil possesses even more magical and combat prowess than the one that came before him, thanks in part to the secret stone he stole amplifying his powers to a godlike level. And as you might have come to expect, this version of Ganondorf is the focus of this moveset's design and the standard for Ganondorf in Smash going forward. In terms of design, this Ganondorf will mainly fight by swapping between a variety of weapons, mixing and matching his options in order to control space and maximize his ranged pressure, all while also making use of dark magic to enhance his stage presence and make approaching him an absolute nightmare. Also, to complement his new design, Ganondorf's overall mobility has received a drastic step up from his previous iteration. No more awkward lumbering jogs here, for Ganondorf's new walk and run animations are now pulled straight from Tears of the Kingdom, with this making Ganondorf look far more menacing. Overall, this design for Ganondorf will be leaving almost everything about his old design behind, and while some of his old attacks might be repurposed for this design, he is far removed from the Captain Falcon poser he once was. And on top of the aforementioned mobility boost, this is best seen through an aspect of Ganondorf that used to be one of his worst aspects: his reach. While he might have been the game's largest humanoid character, Ganondorf's overall range was middling at best, making it very difficult to approach when paired with his horde mobility. But with a new focus on weaponry and magic, Ganondorf's ability to approach and outrange his foes are now some of his main highlights as a fighter. As a result, memes of Ganondorf not being able to approach are now a thing of the past, and some of his worst matchups have now been flipped on their head. However, as you might have come to expect, Ganondorf has been toned down in a couple of areas to compensate for his notable boost in range and speed, and this is mainly seen through his weight and, more importantly, his damage output. In short, Ganondorf has become less of an all-or-nothing powerhouse and more about power through control, with stray hits quickly racking up your opponent's percentage and your ability to capitalize on mistakes through your incredible burst damage. Don't get me wrong, he's still the king of powerhouses, but the days of one-hit Ganondorf kills are now also a thing of the past. On top of this, Ganondorf has indeed taken a hit to his survivability, with his weight value being dropped back down to 113, which is what Ganondorf had during the days of Smash 4. While this means he can take less punishment before losing his stocks, the improvements to his offstage and recovery game means he's far less likely to lose his stocks early, which was a major issue for Ganondorf in Ultimate. As for his mobility options, Ganondorf has 2 jumps, all while being able to wall jump. Even before the events that led to the fall of Hyrule and his rise to power, Ganondorf was always regarded as an incredible warrior and a hero to his people, with his power only falling short to that of King Rauru thanks to the boons granted by his secret stone. On top of that, the way that Ganondorf is shown to deceive and kill Queen Sonia also shows that he was already in possession of magical abilities. As a result, it's arguable that Ganondorf was already strong enough to contend with the many fighters of Smash, but with the godlike power of the secret stone in his possession, few could hope to match his strength once he's running at full power. This aspect of Ganondorf makes up the basis of his character mechanic, for once he realizes his foe is a worthy challenge, he will give them the honor of dying at the hands of the Demon King himself. Once Ganondorf hits a certain percent threshold, he will stop holding back and show his opponent his true form, transforming into the Demon King Ganondorf seen in Tears of the Kingdom and gaining a boost to his stats. This form will give Ganondorf a buff to both his movement speed and damage output, all while altering the properties of several attacks and changing the way the Ganondorf's player can approach combat with a majority of the cast. With the boons provided by Demon King mode, Ganondorf has the potential to be a truly deadly presence on any battlefield and a threat that his opponents will need to take seriously, should they wish to not have their stocks quickly disappear. Ganondorf might have always had the strength to quickly delete stocks, but his inherent lack of survivability and defense greatly alleviated that threat, and much like many aspects of Ganondorf, this aspect of the Demon King is now a thing of the past. Despite this, however, there are a couple of factors attached to Demon King mode that will keep it in check and prevent it from becoming too overbearing, with chief among them being the fact that Ganondorf will lose access to this form if he's KO'd, much like how Sephiroth loses his one-winged mode. This aspect of Demon King will encourage Ganondorf's player to not purely rely on the power provided by the enhanced form, but instead learn the intricacies of both forms in order to excel at all points in the battle, as base form Ganondorf is more than powerful enough on his own to control the neutral. While that's the case, however, it is possible for Demon King to persist through multiple stocks if Ganondorf's player is more than a stock behind, with this giving Ganondorf's player a chance to narrow the gap and potentially even snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, with the percent threshold to become Demon King also shrinking as Ganondorf falls behind, but in turn, it will take longer for Demon King to activate if Ganondorf is in the lead. Also, if Ganondorf's player ends up self-destructing early in their current stock, they will start their next stock in Demon King mode to make up for lost ground, so don't stop fighting until the very end. This makes up the basis of Ganondorf as a character, as what was once an awkward replication of one of the game's most iconic fighters has now been remade into a terrifying mixed-range monster that truly embodies one of gaming's most iconic villains. And for the first time in Smash history, it truly feels like this character is being given a chance to just be himself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We haven't even gone to the actual moveset yet. Well, let's not waste any more time then. Let's now move on to Ganondorf's normals and start discussing the true potential that the Demon King possesses as a fighter. Ganondorf's normals will mainly be comprised of attacks from two of his main weapons, with these being his ever-trusty Gloom Blade and his Gloom Spear, with both of these weapons working in tandem to grant Ganondorf an imposing neutral presence and be generally difficult for some characters to contend with. Also, once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, some of these attacks will either have their properties altered or be changed into a completely different attack, and you'll be able to tell which attacks are exclusive to Demon King mode by which model is used during the attack demonstration. For any attack using Demon King Ganondorf will only be available while the mode is active. Overall, it'll be important for Ganondorf's player to learn the differences between each mode and know how to make use of the altered attacks once the Demon King activates, as doing so will allow you to make the most of Ganondorf's potential as a character. Ganondorf's neutral combo is Sharpened Malice, a simple yet effective combination that will have Ganondorf slash out in front of himself using his Gloom Blade, attacking with a pair of horizontal sword swings before finishing the combo and launching foes away with a spinning slash. This combo's design is similar to the standard attack string that Ganondorf performs with his Gloom Blade during his boss fight in Tears of the Kingdom, and as should be expected, each of this combo's strikes are fully disjointed and sport both solid range and damage. With proper timing, it's not impossible for Ganondorf's player to use this as a kill confirm at higher percents, thanks especially to the launch power provided by the final hit. But should the player make use of this combo when they enter Demon King mode, this combo will gain an additional attack in the form of an even more powerful combo finisher. With this, the Demon King will use the spinning momentum of the third strike to throw himself forward, his hand becoming engulfed in a wave of gloom before attacking foes with a powerful backhand strike. In terms of design, this attack will deal solid damage and sports some fantastic launch power, with its visual design serving as a reference to Ganondorf's iconic Warlock Punch. While it might not be the instant kill machine that was his former neutral special, this extra attack's excellent damage stats can allow it to serve as a kill confirm at higher percents, and a great way to punish neutral mistakes should you intentionally whiff any of the first 3 hits. While that's the case, however, this final blow does end up sacrificing the disjoint provided by the Gloom Blade, meaning it can potentially be interrupted with a well-placed poke, or even lose a trade against characters utilizing swords of their own. It's also a move that's fairly slow on the recovery, so if you choose to commit to the final blow of the combo, it's best to make sure you make it count, as a whiff can result in some serious punishment. Ganondorf's forward tilt is Gloom Piercer, a simple yet highly effective poke option that will have Ganondorf make use of his Gloom Spear, the weapon appearing in his grasp in a flash of gloom before he thrusts it out in front of himself, dealing damage to any foe in its path. As should be expected, this move's claim to fame is its fantastic reach and massive disjoint, with this allowing Ganondorf to contend with a variety of threats in the neutral from a range that most characters can't play at effectively, all while sporing a solid damage output that can be used to either throw foes out of position or potentially even secure a kill at higher percents. It also ends up sporing a fairly large cancel window, with this making it difficult to punish on block should Ganondorf's players space themselves properly, but these upsides can potentially be limited by the move's slow startup speed. As a result, it's best that you refrain from using this move at close range, as doing so can lead to an easy punish. This attack will also remain the same regardless of which form Ganondorf is currently in. Ganondorf's up tilt is Rising Malice, another simple yet highly effective poke option that will have Ganondorf perform a rising slash using his Gloom Spear, with it covering a huge range and launching any foe unlucky enough to be caught in its damage path. In terms of design, this attack is a great way to both pop foes off the floor and challenge an opponent who's trying to land, with the move's massive disjoints making it quite difficult to trade with from above. On top of that, it's also possible to set up an aerial follow-up at low to mid percents if the foe is launched off the floor, but this combo window will quickly deteriorate for all but the game's heaviest fighters, so it's best to not rely on it too much. It can also be easy to punish on block if not spaced correctly, so make sure you mind your positioning. Ganondorf's down tilt is Malicious Sweep, an aggressive spacing option that will have Ganondorf slash low to the ground using his Gloom Sword, the blade of the weapon scraping along the floor and leaving a trail of gloom in its path as it launches foes away at a low horizontal angle. This launch angle, mixed with the move's solid startup and recovery speed, make it a very effective neutral tool and arguably one of Ganondorf's safest buttons in the early game, and at certain percent values, Ganondorf's player can potentially follow up this move with either dash attack or a forward tilt. But there's a reason why the early game is emphasized with this attack, for you see, once you enter Demon King mode, this attack will change into a completely different move altogether. With this, Ganondorf will reel back his fist before delivering a brutal punch into the floor, a wave of gloom erupting upwards and blasting back any foe within range with some very heavy force. In comparison to Malicious Sweep, this attack, which is known as Vile Smash, will end up sacrificing a bit of range and follow-up potential for a quicker startup speed and a much greater knockback growth, with a direct impact spoiling enough strength to serve as a kill confirm on a mid-weight fighter as early as 110%, or even earlier, should the top blast zone be low enough. Its hitbox is also quite deceptive, as it's possible for Ganondorf to strike foes below the ledge if the move is lined up correctly, but it should be noted that while powerful, this attack also ends up sacrificing the disjoint of the Gloom Blade, and in turn, it's much easier to stuff if Ganondorf's player doesn't position themselves correctly. As a result, it's best to use this move as less of a neutral tool and more of a punish option, as you've already got an excellent poke option in your forward tilt in both forms. Ganondorf's dash attack is Impaling Blight, a powerful advancing option that will have Ganondorf rush forward with his Gloom Spear in hand, the weapon held out in front of himself and dealing damage to any foe unlucky enough to be caught in its damage path. A reference to an attack that Ganondorf can perform in his Tears of the Kingdom boss fight, this move covers a massive range and deals some very solid damage. And when I say massive range, I mean both the length of the hitbox and the amount of distance that Ganondorf will cover as he advances. And while it might not cover as much range as it does in his boss fight, it's still an attack that's incredibly difficult to counter from the front. As a result, the best course of defense is to sidestep the attack and strike Ganondorf before he has a chance to recover, but the timing can prove difficult for beginners. For his get-up attacks, Ganondorf will attack around himself by either punching or striking foes with his sheathed blade, all while performing a sweeping slash for his ledge attack. For his smash attacks, Ganondorf will be making use of immensely powerful blows, courtesy of what could be considered the most powerful weapon in his arsenal, which is known as the Gloom Club. This massive spiked club is capable of dealing an incredible amount of damage in very little time, and thanks to its design, Ganondorf will be using it in much the same way the classic Ganondorf would make use of his Space World Greatsword and Ultimate, as two of these attacks can be considered a reskin of his previous iteration's moves. While that's the case, however, Ganondorf will be coming equipped with a brand new attack to better represent his Tears of the Kingdom iteration, so don't think you're simply getting a repainted Ultimate Ganondorf in this section. Ganondorf's forward smash is Gloom Crusher, an immensely powerful attack that will have Ganondorf perform a massive overhead swing with his Gloom Club, with the move's hitbox striking both above and in front of Ganondorf as he turns anything in the weapon's way into a statistic. In terms of design, this move's damage output, startup, and recovery time are roughly on par with that of Mountain Cleaver, with the Gloom Club sporting a massive disjoint that can make it difficult to trade with if you're foolish enough to try and challenge the move from the front. But much like Mountain Cleaver, this move's slow startup makes it fairly easy to punish, if not a bit predictable. While that's the case, it does sport some incredible shield pressure, with it being able to completely destroy any shield it makes contact with if Ganondorf's player manages to fully charge the attack. And since the move's hitbox hits below the ledge, it's possible to armor through an incoming recovery and completely destroy anything trying to counter your edgeguard attempt. Just make sure you space yourself correctly, as that speed stat is going to be the aspect that gets you punished the most. Ganondorf's up smash is Malicious Moon, another very powerful attack that will have Ganondorf swing his Gloom Club up and over his head, the weapon leaving a trail of gloom in its wake and launching anything in its path with an incredible amount of force. Much like Gloom Crusher can be seen as a reskinned Mountain Cleaver, Malicious Moon can be seen as a reskinned Heaven Slayer, with it sporting some incredible power, a deceptively large amount of vertical reach, and an incredible amount of shield pressure, all while protecting Ganondorf's entire hurt box as he attacks. It's a tool that's a lot more versatile than people give it credit for, but much like Gloom Crusher, this move's biggest downside is its slow speed stats, as even though it's not easy to punish, it doesn't sport the single hit of armor to protect you from your own hubris. Try using this to punish get-up options at the ledge, or on foes trying to make use of rising aerials, as nothing will scare your foes out pushing you in your shield than a kill at 85% on your average stage's blast zone. Finally, Ganondorf's down smash is Rising Nightmare, a brand new but equally as powerful attack that will have Ganondorf focus a wave of gloom into his weapon, all before smashing the club's head into the floor and creating an explosion of gloom around himself, launching anything in his path with an incredible amount of force. In terms of design, with the attack's large horizontal hitbox striking on both sides of Ganondorf simultaneously and dealing some very solid damage in the process, all while sporting a quicker recovery speed than its other options and a fantastic disjoint. Thanks to all these upsides, this attack can be considered one of Ganondorf's best tech chasing options, and an absolutely devastating tool to use against foes who are stuck on the ledge. But much like his other smash attacks, it's best that you properly space yourself, and don't throw this out against a foe who has ample time to react and punish your options. As his original design was based on Captain Falcon, it should come as no surprise that Ganondorf's aerials were arguably one of the best aspects of his old kit. With great frame data, solid damage, and a variety of ways to close out stocks, there's plenty of characters in Smash's roster that would love to have an aerials kit as great as Ganondorf's. And as a result, it might prove difficult for this new iteration of Ganondorf to match what came before. Thankfully, this iteration's focus on weaponry will allow Ganondorf to sport much better range and jump pressure than his Falkendorf counterpart, all while being protected by disjoints that can be quite risky for a decent chunk of the cast to contend with. This will, in turn, come at the cost of slightly weaker damage and knockback, but with your improved mobility and much greater stage presence, it's more than possible to negate these downsides and maintain your still fantastic damage output. Ganondorf's neutral air is Gloom Circlet, a simple yet powerful aerial option that will have Ganondorf draw his Gloom Blade, all before quickly slashing around himself and launching anything in his path with some very solid force. In terms of design, this quick strike will hit on both sides of Ganondorf simultaneously, with its quick startup and recovery speed, making it both one of Ganondorf's safest landing options and a great out-of-shield option thanks to its deceptively large range. It's also one of the few moves in Ganondorf's kit that can auto-cancel into his grounded tilts if his player doesn't fast fall too quickly, meaning it can potentially be used to set up shield breaks or even kill confirms if your foe isn't high enough percents, and this is only accounting for the regular version of the move. Once Demon King form is activated, this move's range and damage will receive a notable boost, with its massive disjoint becoming difficult for most characters to contend with, while becoming an even better out-of-shield and landing option. It might lose its potential to synergize with a majority of Ganondorf's kit in exchange for its power, but better survivability is definitely a fair trade-off for less combo potential. Ganondorf's forward air is Hope Slicer, a versatile aerial attack option that will have Ganondorf attacking from himself with a wide slash from his Gloom Blade, the blade of the weapon leaving a trail of red gloom behind as Ganondorf attacks, and dealing solid damage to any foe in the move's damage path. This move's large attack range, mixed with its solid disjoint, turns it into what can essentially be described as a slightly weaker but much safer take on Ganondorf's old forward air, as its above average knockback growth and solid damage make it a solid kill confirm and, as of now, a great edgeguarding tool. It also helps that this move's launch power is consistent throughout the blade, so regardless of what part makes contact with your foe, they'll be sent flying all the same. And this aspect is only enhanced once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode. In this state, the attack pattern of this move will remain the same, but instead of the gloom trail just being a neat visual effect, the trail will now crystallize and explode after a brief delay, with this creating a 2-hit attack that can deal some very potent damage if Ganondorf's player can manage to land both hits. As should be expected, this version of the attack will sacrifice a bit of utility for raw damage, with its strength being great enough to completely destroy defenses if Ganondorf's player can full hop this attack into any of his grounded attack options. And should your foe be foolish enough to block this combo head on, be sure to send them packing with a forward smash chaser once their shield gets inevitably shattered. Just make sure you don't get too greedy, however, as this move's slow recovery means it'll be easier to punish if you're caught out of position. Ganondorf's up air is Spinning Skewer, a more versatile aerial option that will have Ganondorf pull out his Gloom Spear and spin it above his head, dealing rapid damage to any foe who gets too close before launching them upwards with solid force. In terms of design, this attack's quick startup and multi-hit properties make it a fantastic anti-air option and arguably one of Ganondorf's best ground-to-air conversion tools, as its large horizontal hitbox is excellent at sweeping foes up in its damage path before putting them in the position for another ride if they try to land. This comes at the cost of a lower than average knockback growth when compared to Ganondorf's other options, but it's more than a fair trade-off considering how useful this move is to Ganondorf's game plan. If you're looking for something with a bit more power behind it, look no further than the Demon King version of this move, which will change what was once a multi-hitting combo tool into a deadly kill confirm with a large hitbox. And it's known as Crimson Arc. With this, Ganondorf will attack above himself with a large arcing slash with the Gloom Spear, the blade leaving a crimson trail behind as it carves through all foes in its path and launches them with some heavy force. With some great damage stats and a nice visual reference to the infamous Blood Moon, this attack is one of Ganondorf's best ways to reliably kill foes off the top of the screen. And with the ability to both combo into it using your grounded tilts, or even through your throws, your foe will learn to fear this attack's destructive properties or meet their end by it. While that's the case, however, this move's recovery speed is much slower to compensate for its impressive launch power, with this making it easy to punish if Ganondorf's players caught out of position or attempts to land too quickly. Ganondorf's back air is Bloody Draw, a powerful aerial reversal option that will have Ganondorf quickly draw his Gloom Blade, the force of the draw slash dealing heavy damage to any foe in its area of effect, and launching them with equally as heavy force as the weapon's blade leaves a red streak in its path. In terms of design, this move's quick startup and fantastic damage stats make it one of Ganondorf's premier aerial kill confirms and a very dangerous edgeguarding tool, as one hit from this can kill foes at the ledge as early as 85% if they're midweight or below. It also helps that the move also ends up sporing a disjoint, which will make it dangerous to try and trade with for a majority of the cast, but just make sure you don't land too quickly or else you'll be stuck with a nasty case of landing leg. Also, as an added bonus, this move's damage properties will be enhanced even further once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, the blade of the weapon erupting with gloom magic as Ganondorf attacks, and turning this move into one that deals explosive damage. This also ends up adding a bit more range to the move's hitbox, but its speed stats will take a small hit to compensate. Finally, Ganondorf's down air is Gloom Hammer, a very powerful aerial option that will have Ganondorf make use of his Gloom Club, with this having the Demon King raise the weapon above his head before performing a large vertical slam. This slam will deal very heavy damage to any foe that it makes contact with, all while spiking them with an incredible level of potency. A potency that's roughly on par with the down air of its previous iteration. This means that Ganondorf is capable of activating his spike hitbox as early as 20% on majority of the cast, meaning it's more than possible to secure early kills if you can force your foe off stage with a well-placed smash attack or a throw, but its very slow startup and recovery speed will keep its incredible damage stats in check, as it's very easy to dodge in most situations. This move's spike potency will become even stronger once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, with its strength being great enough to surpass Byleth's down air and setting a new record for spike strength in the Smash series. Ganondorf will grab his foe by reaching forward with his free hand, his new grab range being a noticeable improvement over his previous iteration at the cost of a still fairly slow grab speed. This makes his grab a bit more reliable to go for outside of do-or-die situations, all while he performs a slow but powerful knee strike for his pummel. As for his throws, Ganondorf's options can best be described as highly powerful repositioning tools, with their excellent damage output allowing Ganondorf to rack up damage quickly at the cost of what equals out to just above average knockback growth. This means that you're not going to be using these throws to outright kill confirm your foes, but instead force your foes into positions where your long-range pokes are at their most effective, and in turn, set up a potential kill if you're both quick enough and know how to position yourself correctly. As a result, these throws are only as good is the amount of work you're willing to put into them, and if you aren't willing to risk the slow grab speed, it might be safer to just stick with your regular buttons. Also, these throws will sport a slightly higher damage output in Demon King mode, but their kill potential will remain the same, so their usability is the same at any point in the match. Ganondorf's forward throw is Waking Malice, a useful throw option that will have Ganondorf build up gloom within his hand, all before delivering a brutal backhand strike that will cause it to explode and send the foe flying with some very solid force. In terms of design, this throw's low launch angle and great damage make it a fantastic way to push foes off stage and set up a kill using either your forward air or your smash attacks, all while allowing for potential tech chase scenarios if your foe is at low enough percent and far enough away from the edge of the stage. As for its visual design, this attack is a reference to Ganondorf's appearance in The Wind Waker and his affinity for smacking around children 1/3 of his size. And with some dark magic behind this strike and smash, it's more than powerful enough to send anything in its path flying with some satisfying launch power. Ganondorf's up throw is Gloom Rocket, another powerful throw option that will have Ganondorf toss his foe up off the ground, all before launching them high up into the sky with a powerful draw slash courtesy of his Gloom Blade. This 1-2 strike will deal some solid damage and spore an even higher knockback growth than Waking Malice, with it being one of the closest things that Ganondorf has to a kill throw if used on either platforms or stages with low ceilings. And with the ability to strike other nearby foes in multiplayer matches, it's one of your best ways to create some space and punish anyone who thinks they can jump you when you're focusing on another foe. It's also a great way to set up damage on foes that struggle at landing, but if you're looking for more impact, there's definitely better options in Ganondorf's kit. Ganondorf's back throw is Crushing Betrayal. Yeah, another powerful throw option that will have Ganondorf move behind his opponent, all before he sends them flying with heavy force from a brutal punch directly into their spine. In terms of design, this throw sports both the highest knockback growth and damage output of Ganondorf's throw options, with it being able to kill most characters around 135% if you have your back to the ledge. This also makes him one of Ganondorf's best reversal options as well, as should he be pushed into a corner and be unable to escape it, nothing can give you the advantage faster than a well-timed grab. As for its visual design, this throw is meant to serve as a reference to the way that Ganondorf is shown to murder Queen Sonia in Tears of the Kingdom, with its brutal nature and the resounding crunch of the blow as it makes contact with the foe's spine, adding on to how deadly the attack truly is. Finally, Ganondorf's down throw is Fatal Flourish, a weaker but far more versatile throw option that will have Ganondorf toss his foe onto the ground, all before running them through with his Gloom Blade with enough force to bounce him off the floor and up into the air. With its weaker knockback growth and damage output, this throw serves as Ganondorf's combo throw and one of his better ways of racking up damage at low to mid % against the majority of the cast. It would be one of his best, were it not for his slow grab speed, but while effective when it works, it should be noted that Ganondorf's high damage output will push most characters out of combo range with only a couple of interactions, so try to not rely on it too heavily. It's now time to start talking about Ganondorf's specials, and to go in line with his redesign being based around his appearance in Tears of the Kingdom, this is where Ganondorf will get to make use of his most powerful magical abilities to control the flow of battle and add even more to his already fantastic stage presence, as they're designed to work in tandem with his already great range to allow Ganondorf's player to completely shut down both an offensive push or pry a turtle out of their defensive bubble. These specials will also, in turn, become even more powerful once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, with each special gaining either an extra attack option or additional properties to improve their effectiveness in the fight and make Ganondorf an even more imposing threat. Starting with his neutral special, Ganondorf will make use of a unique multi-form charge move that challenges foes from a range and restrict their ability to approach, with each version of this move having a purpose in Ganondorf's game plan and forcing his opponents to always stay on their toes, should they not wish to be caught off guard and take a ton of damage in the process. Whether it's working in tandem with your excellent pokes, or overwhelming your foes with an incredible amount of power, this move can do it all and more. Gloom and Malice. With this, Ganondorf will begin to focus his energy as the player holds down the B button, gloom surging up his arm and pulling in the palm of his hand as it grows in intensity. This wave of gloom will both increase in size and glow brighter the longer the move is charged for, and once the B button is released, Ganondorf will perform one of 3 different attacks, which are known as Gloom Volley, Gloom Wave, and Prison of Malice. Starting with Gloom Volley, this simple fireball projectile serves as a reference to the iconic Dead Man's Volley attack from the Zelda series, with its solid range and great damage, allowing it to excel as both a keep-away tool, while also being a great way of covering your approach. These stats are, in turn, complemented by some very heavy hit stun that can allow Ganondorf's player to follow up this move with a variety of his normals, which can make some of his slower attacks safe and even lead to a kill confirm at higher %. But it should be noted that, while strong when it works, it can potentially be devastating should it be thrown back at Ganondorf. Yes, much like in the Zelda series, Dead Man's Volley is just as much a danger to Ganondorf as it is for his opposition, as reflecting this back at Ganondorf will inflict him with the same heavy hit stun and leave him highly vulnerable to incoming damage. And given his poor disadvantage state and limited ways of escaping a combo, throwing this out in the neutral with reckless abandon might just end up losing you the fight. Moving on to Gloom Wave, this unique attack will have Ganondorf lob a ball of gloom at the ground in front of himself, the wave growing in intensity and size as it travels outwards and dealing great damage to any foe unlucky enough to be caught in its path. In terms of design, this pseudo-projectile will sport a high level priority, allowing it to win out against almost any projectile, should it not have piercing properties, all while sporing enough power to confirm kills at higher %. On top of that, Gloom Wave can be a great way to play with the expectations of foes who might be rocking reflectors, as the unique properties of this move prevent it from being reflected back at Ganondorf. Just make sure you're not too obvious with this attack, as the move's forced charge time and slow startup can give the foe ample time to move behind Ganondorf and punish him once he chooses to commit himself to the attack. Finally, there's Prison of Malice, a ranged command grab attack that will have Ganondorf create a ring of gloom a short distance away from himself. And should a foe be caught in its area of effect, the ring will converge inward and deal extreme damage to the unlucky recipient, all while leaving them in a crumple state and susceptible to even more damage. Thanks to all of this, landing a Prison of Malice as early as mid % can result in a guaranteed kill against any character midweight or below, but that's only if Ganondorf's player can position themselves and follow up the grab effectively. It's also an attack that can be best described as all or nothing, for its limited range and slow recovery speed will almost guarantee that you'll get punished if you whiff this move. As a result, it's best to keep this move's usage sparse, and instead use the fear of getting caught to improve your offense, as the less your foe expects the grab, the higher the chance they have of getting snagged by it. All of this makes up the basis of Gloom and Malice, a highly versatile charge option that can serve a variety of purposes in combat, and a tool that your foe will need to be on the lookout for at all times, especially considering the fact that Ganondorf's player is capable of storing the move's charge by either holding their shield or jumping. While that's the case, however, all of this only takes the base version of Gloom and Malice into account, as once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, this move will gain an extra attack option that will encapsulate the overwhelming power provided to Ganondorf by his secret stone. An attack option that, if used correctly, even has the potential to be more effective than even the likes of Prison of Malice. It will take some time to get going, and you've only got one shot to make it work, but once you do, your foes will only be able to look on in horror as you unleash your unrivaled power. Demon King's Decree. With this, Ganondorf will let out a howl of laughter as he focuses the accumulated gloom in his hand, the volatile substance surging into his arm and exploding outwards as he summons forth a massive pillar of gloom from the ground below him. This pillar of dark magic will deal massive amounts of rapid damage to any foe unlucky enough to be caught in its area of effect, and with its very large hitbox, unique visual effects, and the addition of a small cinematic that plays during one-on-one fights, one would be forgiven for mistaking this attack for a miniature Final Smash. It's also a move that will fully armor Ganondorf during its active duration, meaning that, unless you're ballsy enough to rush in and grab him out of the startup animation, you're going to want to stay clear of the damage zone. That's not to say you can't rack up damage on Ganondorf from afar while he's stuck in the attack animation, however, as it's one of the easiest attacks to whiff punish in the entire game. In terms of design, this move's hitbox will cover roughly a third of your average stage's length horizontally, and cover roughly a screen and a half vertically, with this allowing Ganondorf to snag foes trying to jump over him and heavily punish anyone who's unlucky enough to be caught off stage when Ganondorf unleashes this move. It's also an attack that will always start at ground level, regardless if Ganondorf uses it in the air or on the ground, so don't think you're safe if you're under Ganondorf when he lets this move fly. As for its visual design, this move is meant to serve as a reference to Ganondorf's initial transformation into the Demon King upon claiming Sonia's secret stone, with the massive pillar of gloom mimicking the same pillar of magic that Ganondorf uses to summon forth his army of monsters into the land of Hyrule. Moving on to his side special, Ganondorf will make use of a unique ranged attack that also plays into one of his original strengths as a warlock, mimicry, or more specifically, creating copies of others through the use of illusory magic. This is best seen through his dark servants known as Phantom Ganons, with these menacing specters serving as some of the game's most formidable enemies and a downright terror when they're fighting in packs. And they're just as much a threat here in Smash through this versatile pressure option, Phantom Assault. With this, Ganondorf will summon forth a Phantom Ganon before ordering it to advance on his foe, the Phantom then traveling forward in a straight line and dealing damage to the first foe that it makes contact with. In terms of design, this attack will cover roughly 70% of your average stage's length before the Phantom disappears, and depending on which direction the player holds the control stick during the attack, the Phantom will be able to perform one of 3 different attacks. Should the player continue to hold forward, the Phantom will attack with a horizontal slash to launch foes straight away. Holding up will have the Phantom attack using a rising slash that will launch foes up into the air, while holding down will have the Phantom strike with a vertical slash, with this spiking the foe on hit and causing them to bounce off the floor. As for their purpose in combat, the regular version of Phantom Assault, and one of the safest ways to force foes offstage from a range. The Rising version can be used to set up aerial combos and put pressure on foes trying to land, while the Spike version is arguably one of Ganondorf's strongest edgeguarding tools, as it allows Ganondorf to finish off stocks without going off stage himself. Sure, the Spike power isn't anywhere near the strength of your down air, but it's still more than enough to serve as a gimp tool if your foe doesn't have a great recovery. On top of all of this, it's also possible for Ganondorf's player to perform a feint by holding down the A button during each attack, with this allowing for a much faster recovery animation and, in turn, the ability to play mind games with your foes. Is your foe jump happy and prepared to jump over an incoming phantom? Feint? Then immediately punish with a grounded tilt or jump in aerial. Is your foe turtling and expecting a phantom? Feint the phantom, then hit them with your forward tilt or a projectile. All of this is more than possible when Phantom Assault is used effectively, but if you thought this move's potential was already incredible, it'll only get better once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, as Phantom Assault will gain access to a fourth attack option that can be performed by holding down the B button. With this, the Phantom will forego using its weapon and instead attempt to grab onto the opponent with one of its hands, and should it manage to make contact, it will lift the foe up off the ground before violently exploding in a wave of gloom, dealing damage to the caught foe before they're launched away with solid force. In terms of design, this extra attack is meant to serve as an alternative take on Flame Choke, Ganondorf's old side special, and one of the few aspects of his previous design that was completely original to his character, with this serving as a ranged command grab and a great way to punish foes trying to dance outside of his effective melee range. All while being safe from harm, as hitting the Phantom will not hurt Ganondorf. It also ends up serving as an excellent edgeguarding tool, as even though it won't be chokeslamming your foe into the bomb blast zone, grabbing a foe and forcing them even further off stage will almost always result in a kill against any foe with a poor recovery, if it doesn't just end up kill confirming on its own. While that's the case, however, it should be noted that all versions of Phantom Assault can be interrupted early if your foe manages to hit the Phantom before it's able to get off its attack, meaning that if you give your foes time to react, there's a very high chance they'll be able to stuff this move before it ever reaches them. It can also be interrupted by projectiles, but the Phantom's hitbox will result in it destroying any projectile that doesn't sport piercing properties. This means that Ganondorf's player can purposely throw out a Phantom to block incoming projectiles if he's being zoned out. But just keep in mind that the end leg of Phantom Assault will be increased if the Phantom itself is destroyed, so make sure you maintain your distance. Moving on to his recovery special, Ganondorf will utilize a versatile attack option that will not only allow him to cover a great distance in little time, but also protect himself on the approach if his foes are quick to jump the gun. Just make sure you don't get caught out of position, because if you do, making it back to the ledge might be a difficult affair. Rising Calamity. With this, Ganondorf will cause his body to dissipate into a wave of gloom before rushing in a direction chosen by the player, his visage resembling that of Calamity Ganon as he deals damage to any foe who gets caught in the damage path. Once the move travels its full distance, Ganondorf's body will then reform before entering a helpless state, with this encouraging players to aim for the ledge if they can afford to do so. In terms of design, this recovery's biggest strength is the move's brief invulnerability on startup, with this allowing Ganondorf to avoid incoming damage before immediately punishing with an attack that's powerful enough to confirm kills at higher percents. It's also an attack that's capable of catching multiple foes at once, so throwing this out in a multiplayer match can potentially result in a multi-man finisher. But while that's the case, it should be noted that this attack does not sport any sort of protection once the attack's hitbox becomes active, meaning that this attack can be stuffed from mid-range if your foe is given a chance to react to it. It's also possible to punish the move's invulnerability through the use of grabs, meaning characters with tether grabs like Samus can easily exploit this move if used haphazardly. But, as you might have guessed, all of this only accounts for the base version of the move, as once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, this move will gain access to a powerful follow-up attack to crush foes who are caught out of position. Should the player continue to hold the B button during Rising Calamity, Ganondorf will not go into a helpless state at the end of the move's duration, but instead will perform a diving punch back down towards the ground and deal heavy damage to any foe in his path, all while creating a shockwave of gloom once his fist makes contact with the floor. A reference to an attack that Ganondorf performs in his Ocarina of Time boss fight, this attack's fantastic damage stats and shield pressure will allow for Ganondorf to recover high and potentially punish those trying to camp him at the ledge, all while protecting himself from damage thanks to the attack's single hit of super armor. While very strong when it works, however, this attack does end up suffering from the same crippling weakness as the majority of fastfall aerials in Smash, which is its slow recovery speed. This means that it's incredibly easy to punish Ganondorf should the attack end up whiffing, as although the shockwave makes this move easier to land with, this move's armor will disappear once Ganondorf's fist makes contact with the ground, allowing foes to jump over and launch Ganondorf if they're given ample time to react. Finally, for his down special, Ganondorf will make use of a powerful utility option to turn his opponent's strengths against them in the most pragmatic way he possibly can, all while showing his opposition that he's no longer a character that you can pressure as much as you want without repercussions. While this kind of utility is fairly common here in Smash, this is the first time it's being utilized by a character from the Zelda series, so make sure you always think twice once you've caught Ganondorf out of position. Flurry Rush. a reference to an ability that he is capable of performing during his boss fight. Ganondorf will take a defensive stance with his Gloom Blade drawn, all while goading his foe into trying to attack him. And should they fall for this taunt and attempt to strike him, Ganondorf will quickly jump away from his foe before immediately following up with a rushing blade slash. In terms of design, this stylish counterattack will allow for Ganondorf's player to launch their caught foe in one of two directions, as depending on whether you hold forwards or backwards on the control stick, Ganondorf can either send his foe flying straight away from him or directly behind him. These two versions of Flurry Rush will also end up spoiling the same damage multiplier, meaning you can potentially set up an early kill if you end up blocking an attack with your back to the ledge. And once you enter Demon King mode, this counter's multiplier will only become stronger, resulting in earlier kills and making it all the more dangerous to push against Ganondorf without a plan. Also, as an added bonus, the Demon King rendition of Flurry Rush will have Ganondorf forgo using his weapons altogether, as he'll instead meet his foes halfway with an incredibly powerful punch directly into either their face or the back of their head. Last up is the final smash, and for this, Ganondorf will show his opposition the true might of a king as he unleashes the true power of his secret stone. But to simply crush his foe is beneath him. No, they must be humiliated before meeting their end, for then they may serve as a warning to all those who would dare go against the wishes of the Demon King. Grovel all you wish, but nothing is going to save you once you're within his grasp. This is the Blood Moon Rises. When the final smash starts, Ganondorf will let out a bellowing laugh as he prepares to draw his blade, and in a flash, he'll fly forward and attempt to slash the closest foe with an incredibly fast slice from his sword. This strike is fairly similar to the start of the final smashes sported by both Marth and Lucina, but instead of delivering a fatal blow on contact, the first foe struck by this attack will instead be knocked to the ground as they're locked into the cinematic final smash. At this point, Ganondorf will summon forth a horde of Phantom Ganons that will surround the trapped foe, and with an order to attack, the Phantoms will proceed to gang up on and beat the foe into submission, all while Ganondorf lets out a bellowing laugh at their torment. After being beaten into the floor, Ganondorf will then walk up behind his foe before grabbing them by the back of the head, the grip on his foe causing gloom to seep into their form and slowly eat away at them as he prepares to unleash one final attack. With a vicious mockery of his foe's ability to fight back, Ganondorf will end the final smash by summoning forth a huge wave of gloom just below himself, the blood moon rising in the background as the screen gets consumed by an immense amount of dark magic. And depending on his opponent's percent, one of two outcomes will occur. Should his foe be below 100% damage, Ganondorf will simply toss his foe back towards the floor and claim that there's more suffering to come. But should his foe cross the 100% threshold at any point during the final smash, their heavily corrupted forms will burst apart from the excessive gloom exposure, with this causing Ganondorf to let out one final bellowing laugh before he returns to his idle animation. For his victory theme, Ganondorf will take a step away from the familiar tune used by the other members of the Zelda cast and make use of a track befitting his evil nature. And by that, I of course mean the theme that has followed him ever since his inception in Ocarina of Time. It's a haunting tune that carries an air of malevolence and confidence, and for a being of pure evil like Ganondorf, I wouldn't have it any other way. Victory animation number 1 will show Ganondorf building up gloom in his hand, and after flashing the camera a devious smile, he'll raise his hand to the sky and release a beam of dark magic up into the air. This beam will then break apart before raining back down onto the ground below, the blobs of gloom forming into a series of monsters that will sneer at the camera as Ganondorf lets out a bellowing laugh. This victory animation serves as a reference to the scene in which Ganondorf fully transforms into the Demon King and sets his army of monsters upon the land of Hyrule. And now that his foes are no more, it's only a matter of time before they descend upon the world of Smash and drive it into chaos. Victory animation number 2 will show Ganondorf riding atop the back of a large black warhorse, a huge group of various monsters traveling behind him as he leads the charge against those who would oppose his rule. This victory animation is meant to serve as a reference to one of the many flashback cutscenes that the player can encounter while traveling around Hyrule in Tears of the Kingdom, and in much the same vein as his first victory animation, the world of Smash is bound to be consumed now that his greatest enemies have fallen before him. Finally, Victory Animation number 3 will show Ganondorf sitting on the throne of Hyrule, the throne room around him desecrated as a group of phantom Ganons appear on either side of him. At this point, Ganondorf will look down at his foe and laugh at their misfortunes, all before his phantoms join him in his mockery and laugh until the player cycles back to the character select screen. Going in line with the same theming as its other victory animations, this unique animation is meant to play more into Ganondorf's reputation as a character who embodies the term disrespect. And while it might be taking a note out of Dr. Doom's book, it's an animation that feels right at home with the King of Evil. Taunt number 1 will have Ganondorf spin around in place and release an outward blast of gloom while laughing, which is practically identical in appearance to the same taunt that Ganondorf has sported since its introduction in Melee. However, in comparison to his previous iteration, this taunt now sports an additional effect in the form of dealing damage to any foe unlucky enough to get too close. It's not enough damage and knockback to kill, but if you're lucky, you might be able to BM a foe recovering off stage if you position yourself correctly. Taunt number 2 will have Ganondorf motion for his foes to approach with his free hand, all while mocking their ability to fight. This simple taunt is a direct reference to the same taunt that Ganondorf does to Link right before the third phase of his boss fight begins. And if you're in a one-on-one fight, Ganondorf's dialogue will be changed to reflect this. Finally, taunt number 3 will have Ganondorf pull his Gloom Blade out of its sheath before performing a small flourish, and after posing for the camera, he'll sheath the blade and return to his idle animation. A unique take on a taunt that Ganondorf has sported since Brawl, this animation feels right at home for a character design who specializes in weapon-based combat, as it's now a show of his skills with his sword, and not a bitter reminder of bad character design. Also, as an added bonus, Ganondorf's player can end this combo with an advancing slash if they continue to hold the taunt button, which will sport enough power to kill confirm at higher percents if they can time it correctly, with this serving as a reference to Ganondorf's sword taunt kill from PM and P+. For his colors, Ganondorf will be following in the same vein as his original iteration and sport a blend of options that are both original to Smash and references to previous iterations of the Demon King from the Legend of Zelda series. These colors are mostly subtle in their appearance, all while his Demon King form will also sport its own unique color options to help it stand out from his base form, all while also referencing the more monstrous appearances of the Demon King from throughout the Zelda series. Color number 1 is Ganondorf's standard appearance, featuring his bright red hair, dark brown kimono, gray pants, and various golden pieces of jewelry. This is also the default color of his Demon King form, which features his glowing red hair and gloom-colored clothing. Color number 2 is a simple yet impactful option that will simply change the hair color of both base Ganondorf and the Demon King from their standard red to a snow white, with this being a color option that Ganondorf has sported in Smash since Brawl. Color number 3 is the first of the standard Smash original color options, with this changing Ganondorf's kimono and pants to a crimson red, all while his golden jewelry will instead take on the appearance of rubies. These changes will also be carried over to his Demon King form as well, with this brightening the red in his clothes and altering his golden jewelry. Color number 4 will follow the same design as color number 3, but will instead change his outfit to a blend of various shades of blue. Also, as an added bonus, some highlights will be changed to a bright yellow, with this serving as a reference to the clothes worn by King Rauru. Color number 5 will change Ganondorf's ensemble to a blend of lime and forest green, with this being the third color to follow the same theming as color number 3. Color number 6 will be the last of Ganondorf's options to build off of color number 3, with this changing Ganondorf's clothes to a blend of deep purple and magenta. Color number 7 will change Ganondorf's clothes to a blend of deep black and gold, all while changing his hair to a bright orange and darkening the pigment of his skin. This color serves as a reference to Ganondorf's previous appearances, namely his Twilight Princess iteration, and as an added bonus, the skin color of the Demon King will instead be changed to a light gray to reference Demise, the original Demon King whose curse would haunt the heroes of Hyrule for millennia to come. Finally, color number 8 will change Ganondorf's clothes to a maroon color, while changing the pigmentation of his skin to an ocean blue, with this referencing the true form of the Legend of Zelda's main villain, Ganon. This villainous reference will be doubled once Ganondorf enters Demon King mode, with this having his Demon King form take on a deep black and red color scheme with blazing red hair to reference Calamity Ganon, the main villain of Breath of the Wild and a pure manifestation of Ganondorf's hatred. For as long as I can remember, a majority of the discussion around Ganondorf and Smash Bros. Has always been focused on a single topic. A topic that, given how long he's been a part of the series, is more than worth discussing, which is the fact that Ganondorf in Smash doesn't feel anything like Ganondorf. It's no secret that a lot of people in the community are just not happy with how this character has been handled by the Smash franchise. And considering how many opportunities there have been to improve or rework aspects of his design that just don't work, the fact that we're still stuck with a character whose inspiration has nothing to do with his own franchise is frankly inexcusable. Ganondorf is the main villain of one of Nintendo's largest franchises and one of the most iconic series in video game history. And while a lot of the villains of Smash are hit and miss in terms of design quality, Ganondorf is by far the worst character design in the entire series. And it sucks, because there's no reason for him to be that way. Long story short, Ganondorf has been long overdue for a notable change to his gameplay structure, and with the release of Tears of the Kingdom, and one of the most versatile iterations of the Demon King since its inception, it truly feels like we've reached the point of now or never. I think I speak for everyone when I say that Ganondorf absolutely deserves a complete redesign, whether it's replacing what's already there or adding a second playable Ganondorf. It just needs to happen. And in designing this version of Ganondorf, I did my best to make a design that shows all of his best aspects as a character, while also paying respect to the version that came before him. It's new yet feels familiar enough for Ganondorf players to jump in and feel right at home, which is exactly what I think Ganondorf should be if he were to ever get a redesign. Here's hoping that we finally get to see the day where our cries are heard and the feedback of the fans actually leads to something good for the Smash series. But until that day happens, I'll just be here, supporting Ganondorf's actual inclusion into Smash for as long as it takes. Damn, can you believe that Ridley got into Smash before Ganondorf? This series is absolutely crazy. And with that, this challenger concept is complete. If you like what you saw and want to see more, be sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you wish to keep up to date on what's coming next, follow a link in the description to join my Discord, where you'll be able to see what's coming next before any other platform. Also, if you'd like to help support what I do here, you can either become a channel member or join my Patreon for as low as a couple of bucks a month. Anything I receive from either platform goes straight back into making these videos better, so all support is highly appreciated. That's all from me for now, so until the next time I see you, I've been Felicia Fan, and I hope that this video was worth the wait.